If you have ever been passed over for a promotion by someone you know you're smarter than, then you need to watch this video.
This is important.
There's a pattern that shows up in the careers of high performance people. Early on, it seems almost too easy. Everything works. You show up early, you stay late, you do your work, you're consistent, you are the go-to person. You deliver results, you get recognized, you get promoted quickly. The formula is simple. Do great work, get noticed, get promoted, repeat. And at some point in your career, you reach a spot where that formula doesn't seem to work as well as it used to. Not because your work is getting any worse. You're always performing at a consistent, excellent level. But the promotions seem to start going to people that are slightly, if not way less technically capable than you are. The opportunities go to people that you outperform on every level. You know it.
I know this.
Right? The decision makers in your organization that used to respond to results, now they start to respond to something else that isn't the results. And that something is relationships. And the absence of intentional investment in relationships is the most common bottleneck in the careers of genuinely talented, high-performance people. In this video, we're going to talk about what that bottleneck is, how it forms, and how to eventually overcome it. But before we do, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, my name is Brian Bradshaw. I'm author of the book, Accomplish Anything. I'm the founder of The Social Edge. And on this channel, we talk about communication skills, confidence, charisma, social intelligence. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. So here's an example of the career arc that most high performance people experience. In the early stages, you're in a pool of people, and the output, your work, is the differentiator. Think of it like the standard bell curve. You've got 80% of the people doing okay work, average work. You've got 20% of the people who are slackers, who shouldn't be there, and you've got 20% of the people who are the outliers. They're outstanding, right? They stand above the rest, and that's you.
I am the greatest.
Your output is visible. Your excellence stands out. Your ability shines brighter than most people that you're in that original pool with. And that gap between you and the rest of everybody else is enough to get you promoted early on. But as your career progresses, that pool of talent gets shallower and shallower. All of a sudden, you're not completely blowing everyone out of the water. You're surrounded by people, by peers who are just as capable of you, just as hardworking. They've got the degrees, they've got the certifications, they've got the experience. So talent-wise, it kind of levels out. Now the decision on who advances further is no longer based just on output. Now leaders are looking for trust, for confidence, for people who they want with them, sitting next to them in the trenches, making the hard decisions. Now promotions aren't based solely on output and results. Now they're based on relationships. Being a great worker, being a high performer, that got you to a certain level. But if you want to go even higher, that's where the relationship skills come in. This isn't just like a soft truth. This is the reality of how the world and how organizations work. The people who advance beyond a certain point are almost never the most technical, never the most knowledgeable.
Facts.
They are the voices that people trust, and they are the people that inspire confidence and certainty. And for most high performers who are so focused on execution and doing a great job, they're usually the last to see this coming.
Whoa! Wait a minute!
High performers often treat relationships in the office or in the organization as something nice to have. Achievement-oriented people are really disciplined with their time and with their energy, and they invest where the return is measurable. Which college they went to for undergrad, where they went for their master's degree, what certifications they have, what skills and what training do they sign up for. And these things make sense to most high performers because there's a measurable ROI. Relationships do not work that way. The return isn't immediate, the results aren't always measurable, and the investment doesn't feel like work in the way that work feels like work. And a lot of high performers treat relationships, not deliberately, not consciously, but they treat them as something that's just going to happen. It's a natural byproduct of just being in the organization.
Wrong.
Work comes first, and then if building a relationship happens, that's great. But real meaningful relationships don't work that way. Not the kind that matters in an organization that's going to help you get promoted. Trust compounds the same way expertise does, through small, consistent deposits made over time, long before they're needed. Person who remembers something you mentioned like 2 months ago in passing. The colleague who just checks in on you without a political agenda.
How you doing?
The leader who gives praise in public but gives feedback in private. In and of themselves, none of these moments feel real earth-shattering, but together, they build something that no technical competence can even come close to. Strong relationships are rarely built in just a single moment of opportunity. They're built long before the opportunity arrives, which means the professional who waits until they need a relationship is the one that's always going to start too late. The relationship that would have opened a door was never developed. The trust that would have made them the chosen candidate was never built. High performers don't often realize that they're behind on this until the moment where they need it. Until the day of the interview, until the opportunity for the promotion opens. It's like, uh-oh.
Oh shit!
Influence is the skill that multiplies everything else. Here's a useful way to think about what changes as your career advances. In the early stage, when you were just beginning, your output is what you were getting judged on. Your results were what were paying the bills. You think big, you think outside the box, you solve the problem, you deliver results. At a certain level, and this transition point happens different for different people and different organizations at different point in their careers, what you're paid for shifts. The work itself becomes less important than the way you're able to align people around the work, to get buy-in for a new idea, how you effectively navigate difficult conversations and difficult relationships, the way you inspire certainty when people are uncertain. Technical expertise solves problems. Influence helps other people buy into the solution. And above a certain threshold at every level, the second skill is what determines how effective the first skill is. This is why sometimes you'll see less technically capable people outperforming more capable people in leadership roles, and why it can feel so confusing from the outside looking in. What looks like politics over meritocracy oftentimes is a matter of influence. The person that advances understood something at a certain level that all the other people didn't. At a certain level, your individual contribution matters less than the way you're able to get other people to contribute.
These are facts. You can't refute facts.
The higher you climb, the less you're paid for what you know, and the more you're paid for how well you're able to move people. And that skill, genuine influence, not politics, not manipulation, is very, very rarely taught. You're coached on the technical path. You're coached on how to be very good at systems and how to use different tools to find solutions. But how many times has someone sat you down and said, hey man, listen, at some point, all of this is going to flip. And what it changes into is fundamentally relational. People follow those who make them feel valued. One of the most overlooked dynamics in professional relationships is also one of the simplest. People support those who make them feel important. Not flattered, not managed, not strategically checked on, actually seen as someone whose value, someone whose experience matters.
Get your suit on! We need you!
Whose contributions are noticed. This shows up in specific behaviors that high performers and great workers rarely invest in. Listening well so that people feel understood and not just like processed what the words they said were. Remembering small details that someone mentioned in passing. Asking questions that reveal you've been paying attention. Giving credit specifically and publicly. None of these behaviors are difficult or complicated, and most of them take maybe 2 minutes, and they create an experience. The experience of being valued. That experience of being valued, that drives loyalty, collaboration, and discretionary effort in ways that compensation structures and performance incentives rarely match. Research bears this out. People very rarely remember the details of what a leader said, but they will remember how they felt. Whether they felt respected or disrespected. Whether they felt valued or micromanaged. Whether they left the meeting or the conversation with a sense of clarity or a sense of, oh, here we go again.
Here I go again.
That emotional residue forms over thousands of conversations, over weeks and months and years. And that determines if you become a leader that people want to follow or just someone in an office with a title that they have to follow or else they'll get in trouble. People support leaders who make them feel respected, and feeling understood builds loyalty. And loyalty, right, the kind that shows up in the hard moments, during the challenges, in the uncertain times, in the ones where everyone could easily just disengage, is built through small, consistent acts of genuine attention over time. Not through authority, not through carrot and the stick, not through incentives, through the experience of being actually seen, heard, and valued. That next level requires a different definition of success. Most high performers define success the same way throughout their entire career. The results of the outputs that they produce. How much can I produce? How much can I deliver? Of course, it makes sense. Those are the questions that got you there.
Duh.
It also, at a certain point, becomes the ceiling that you can't break through. The transition from high performer to leader, that mental shift that unlocks the next level, is always a shift in what you optimize for. From how much can I accomplish to what can I do to help all the other people around me succeed? That's not a soft pivot. That is a fundamental orientation of how you show up every single day. Individual contributors prove themselves by doing, by producing an output. Leaders prove themselves by developing. We're creating environments where everyone around them produces better results, where people get along, where people collaborate. This is where relationship investing stops becoming optional and becomes the work itself. Because you cannot develop an environment of trust and high performance if you haven't built relationships with anyone in your organization. You cannot inspire confidence in uncertain times if you don't have the relationship credibility, if that hasn't been built. High performers create results. Great leaders create environments where great results happen. Difference isn't intelligence, it isn't luck, it isn't even effort. It's the willingness to redefine work. Not the outputs you produce, but the quality and the level of the relationships that you built. Okay, so how do we actually do this? Here are some concrete, easy examples that you can start today. Easy step number 1, map out the current environment of your relationships and identify the gaps. Most high performers have a pretty clear idea of the technical skills they need to develop. Maybe I need to get better at Excel or PowerPoint or public speaking or pivot tables, but almost none have an equivalent picture of the relationships. Take 20 minutes this week, list 5 to 10 people who have the most influence over the opportunities that you'll be getting in the future. The ones who make the real decisions about advancement, who bring up your name as a suggestion to put on projects, who have relationships with other decision makers. And for each one, write down their name and honestly assess the quality of the relationship that you have with each other. Not the frequency of how many times you see them in the bathroom, but a true sense of the depth of the trust. If more than half the people on the list have an idea about what you do, but they don't really know you, that's a gap, that's a problem. And it's costing you more than you realize. Easy step number 2, build it before you need it and take tiny little steps each day. You don't build a relationship that matters by reaching out the moment you need something. You build relationships through small, consistent interactions that don't have an immediate agenda. So this week, take a look at the list of names you've identified and reach out to one of them. Check in on something that they have previously mentioned. Share something relevant to a problem they're working on. Ask a question that you're genuinely curious about. 2 minutes, no agenda, that's the practice. And it's going to compound in ways that a quarterly networking event never will. Easy idea number 3, develop your influence through questions, not arguments. Next time you're in a situation where you need to bring someone to your position, a disagreement, a negotiation, a pitch, resist the instinct to lead with your argument and instead lead with a question. Find out where they are, what they're concerned about, what would need to be true for them to move in the direction that you're advocating. Understand their position before you present yours. This is not a persuasion technique. It's an easy demonstration that their thinking, their opinion matters to you. And that's because it actually does. And that is the foundation of trust that helps influence people. People move toward people that make them feel understood, not people that can just out-argue them because they can. Easy step number 4, make